Welcome to online worship at the White Bear Lake United Methodist Church. My name is Pastor John McBride, and together with Pastor Bill Eves, we thank you for joining us this morning. If you're watching this service on Facebook, whether on Sunday morning or at some different time, we'd like to ask you to take a moment right now and to share this page. That way your friends will have an opportunity to join us as well. Today we begin the season of Advent and a new series of messages entitled, I Believe Even When. This Advent, we are looking to hear words of comfort, of challenge, and of good news. The prophet Isaiah and the four gospel authors were writing in a time when people needed desperately to hear all of these as well. This first week, Isaiah, the prophet, and Mark, the first of the gospel writers, reassures the people that good news is beginning, and yet they both say, make yourself ready, raise your voice, change your hearts, get ready to be transformed because now it is the time. Let us embrace hope that we can do what needs to be done to bring more light into the world. Let's be in worship together.
When I look around, I see shadows of hunger. Particularly in this time of pandemic, so many neighbors nearby and around the world will go to bed hungry tonight. When I look around, I see shadows of injustice, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and someone somewhere will fall asleep under a bridge tonight. In the face of hunger, we light a candle of hope. In the face of injustice, in the face of despair, we light a candle of hope. Let the light from this candle say to all that God's hope is coming on earth as it already is in heaven. Friends, Be not afraid. God's hope is at hand.
In this Advent season of hope, I invite us to unite our hearts in hope as we turn to God in prayer. God of all people, in these days when we long for time to move ahead to a brighter future, when we have our hopes pinned on deliverance, we remember that we are like so many people in every era of the past who have longed for a better day. And through all time, your promise remains that your love never ends and your faithfulness is eternal. And although for years we may have grown accustomed to making our lives as routine as possible, and though we grow comfortable through the years with our routines, we know that something different is happening now. So give us a spirit of holy expectation, a capability to live with wide-eyed wonder for what this new time in our lives may hold in store for us. And although we have come to expect that what we will do is what we have always done, and that who you will be to us is who you have always been, keep our spirits open to what may be new in this season of Advent, to the ways you may be moving among us, or the ways we have never noticed before. For many places in which we walk, the streets we roam, the paths we cross, guide our feet and take us to places where you would go. Give us words that you would use, so that in this Advent season of promise and preparation, we might be bearers of hope to the people around us and to this world. Let the sick, the grieving, the struggling, the hopeless be nourished and strengthened by that hope. Let conflicts be transformed by that hope. Let problems be seen in a new light because of that hope. We lift up to you all those whose burdens we bear in our hearts, all whose lives touch our lives, and all who seek a ray of hope, even at this moment. And we pray together in the words Jesus gave us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
This time last year, Lowry and I had so many plans to be traveling in 2020. Our first trip was going to be to Japan in late January, early February. We wanted to be there for our granddaughter Una's first birthday. The next trip was going to be over Easter. We were going to be in Guatemala on a mission trip for Common Hope. And then in May, we were going to take a long camping trip out west to see all of the national parks. And then in June, we were going to go to Washington State to help our son and daughter-in-law and Una settle back into the United States once they got stationed back here in the States. We hadn't made any definite plans for the second half of the year, but some of our tentative plans included a trip to Maryland to visit our daughter and granddaughter, and perhaps a second mission trip with some of you to Guatemala to work with Common Hope. Well, we made it to Japan, but while we were there, the virus began to spread. There was a ship just off the coast of Japan that was in the news while we were there. They wouldn't let anybody off the ship because of fear that it might spread into Japan. We were able to get back to the United States before the travel restrictions were put in place. But one by one after that, our trips were canceled or delayed until 2021. Instead of travel, we found ourselves in a holding pattern, just waiting. It seems like we've been waiting all year, hoping for so much that seems just so far away, waiting for this pandemic to abate, waiting for this election to be over, waiting for the polarization, the hatred, the dissension to begin to fade, waiting for some racial healing to begin. As we head into the season of Advent, a season of waiting, a season of anticipating and hoping for something new, talking about waiting seems a bit too much to ask, doesn't it? It is difficult to convince ourselves that we should keep up hope and somehow find love, joy, and peace this particular Advent season. 2020 is one of those years we will talk about for a long time. We'll all be saying, I remember back in 2020 when, but what will we remember? Will we remember it as a year of pain and struggle or a year of hope for tomorrow? As I mentioned, each week we'll be focusing on passages from Isaiah and the beginning of each of the four Gospels. Our first reading from Isaiah are excerpts from chapter 40. O comfort my people, says your God. A voice cries out, in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for your God. Every valley shall be lifted up, every mountain and hill be made low. The uneven ground shall become level, and the rough places a plain. Then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all people shall see it together. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken. A voice says, cry out. And I said, what shall I cry? All people are grass. Their consistency is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades. When the breath of the Lord blows upon it, surely the people are grass. The grass withers and the flower fades. But the word of our God will stand forever. Get you up to a high mountain, O Zion, herald of good tidings. Lift up your voice with strength. O Jerusalem, herald of good tidings, lift it up. Do not fear, says the city of Judah. Here is your God. Isaiah was a prophet who was writing in a time of exile and suffering of the people of Judah. In some ways, we've all been exiled from one another, haven't we? We've been exiled from the rhythm of life that helps us feel settled. Isaiah is writing to the people in exile in Babylon. Well, it's widely accepted that the book of Isaiah is rooted in a historic prophet called Isaiah, who lived in the kingdom of Judah during the 8th century BC. It's also widely accepted that this prophet did not write the entire book of Isaiah. The substance of the first Isaiah is prophetic and historic, with a theme of condemnation. But at chapter 40, the theme changes dramatically. Comfort, O comfort my people, says your God. Second Isaiah begins. Second Isaiah is speaking to the people in pain, in exile, away from their homes, away from their ordinary lives. But he's also speaking to us. We are sick of the bad news, but denying it doesn't make it go away. So comfort is where Isaiah goes. God is giving us hope for a tomorrow. Speak tenderly. Understand that you're not in this alone. Recognize one another's deep pain. Keep your eyes open to discover how the suffering of today has within it a hope for tomorrow, a hope that might be revealed in strange ways that we don't fully understand yet. A voice cries out, "In the wilderness prepare the way of the Lord, make straight a highway for our God." In exile, the people of Judah began to think that God had forsaken them, just like those people during their exile. We have to realize that sometimes it seems we get in the way of being with God. The idea of preparing the way of the Lord is a word picture because it's really a preparation that must take place in our hearts. Those mountains and valleys of life, they have to be made straight. Not so God can find us, but that so we can see that God is already present in our lives. All people are grass, says Isaiah. Their consistency is like the flower of the field. Isaiah imagines the beautiful green grass covering the hills of Judah after the winter rains, and how quickly the grass dies and the hills are left brown and barren. This is how frail and weak humans are, Isaiah tells us. The life of each human being is fleeting and passes as quickly as spring wildflowers. All its loveliness is like the flower of the field. Isaiah calls us to see that even though people and grass both die, there is a rebirth and a renewal that comes. Advent is the beginning of our liturgical year, when we begin to tell our Christian story anew. What hope will be discovered this year? Perhaps seeing the story from a different perspective, one where we are exiles, will help us enter more deeply into the meaning of new birth and transformation in our lives this Advent season. Our gospel verse today is from Mark. Mark begins by recalling Isaiah 40, the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God, as is written in the prophet Isaiah. "See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make his path straight." Mark's gospel is the first to be written and the shortest. It gets right to the narrative of Jesus' transformative ministry. There's no time for a nativity story in Mark. Mark begins with John the Baptist being that voice that cries out in the wilderness. Make yourself ready, because God is about to do something you didn't expect. Keep your eyes open and prepare the way for God to enter into your heart and enter into your life, Mark tells us. This is the first Sunday of Advent, and we light the candle of hope. Both Isaiah and Mark come out of times when people needed hope for a new day, a time when people were so tied up with their own loss that they couldn't see that God was present and working in their lives already. During the Holocaust, an anonymous Jewish poet scrawled on the walls of a concentration camp that imprisoned him or her these words: "I believe in the sun even when the sun is not shining." This poet, even in the midst of suffering, of being exiled from the life that should have been, found hope. These words call us to transform our fear, our human penchant for destroying one another, and instead seek reconciliation and make straight our way to God. 2020 didn't turn out the way Lowry and I had planned our year to go. But I refuse to say that any year was wasted, that any year failed to make a difference in my life. So with a worldwide pandemic, racial injustice and struggle, political polarization, distortion of the very idea of what is truth, what do we make of it all? In what way do we find rebirth and transformation? What do we believe even though the sun isn't shining? Last April, a New Zealander named Thomas Roberts uploaded his poem, The Great Realization, to his YouTube channel. The poem is told as a father reading a bedtime story to his son. A month after he posted it on his YouTube, the video had over 18 million views across YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Overnight, this previously unknown poet had moved the hearts of viewers from all over the world. His poem tells a story of a post-coronavirus world in which people have learned to value things that they had long been taking for granted. In short, he describes a better world after the pandemic, where people preferred the world they found to the one they had left behind. At the end of the story, the son asked, why did it take a virus to bring the people together? Sometimes you have to get sick before you start feeling better, the father tells him. On this first week of Advent, this week of hope, I spent some time reflecting on what I believe even though the sun isn't shining. I believe that church, even without a building, can be one of the greatest expressions of God's love. I believe that friendship can survive anything, even exile from one another. I believe that family is and will always be my greatest joy. I believe that science is a gift from God, a gift that God has given us that cannot be ignored and cannot be denied. I believe that proclaiming Black Lives Matter does not negate the importance of any life, but rather lifts up and affirms the equality and value of all human life. And I believe that the arc of history always bends toward justice. And I believe that the present is where hope resides. In the present, the past no longer holds us prisoner to our future, and dreams of the future different from the past can become a reality. It is in the present where new life begins. And I believe that God is always present, even though I sometimes get in the way of knowing that. My friends, as 2020 winds to an end and we begin anew with this season of hope, what do you believe in, even when the sun isn't shining?
My life goes on in endless song, a purpose lamentation. I catch the sweet though far off hymn that hails a new creation. No storm can shake my inmost hope, while to that rock I'm clinging, since Christ is Lord of
Hi everyone, it's Kate Mulder. I just wanted to say hi to everyone in White Bear Lake and hope everyone is doing well. I am currently living in Des Moines, Iowa, and I am teaching 8th grade U.S. history at Weeks Middle School. So far, we have been all virtual, but starting on October 26th, I will have kids back in the building and I will get to see all of their faces and meet them, and I'm just so excited. I have loved living in Des Moines so far. I'm living with two of my great friends from college. One of them just got a puppy, so we've had so much fun exploring the city and puppy training whenever we're out of work. I have struggled this year with being a first-year teacher and teaching in the middle of a pandemic. It has been really hard to teach my kids online without seeing any of their faces, because of course they're 8th graders and they all have their cameras off. So I am so looking forward to meeting them, seeing them smile behind a mask on October 26th. It has made me realize how important it is to give everyone a smile when you see them, and be kind, and facial expressions and nonverbal cues. Because it's definitely something I miss, especially when I try and tell a joke and no one laughs because they're on mute. But I have loved watching church on Sundays. It has been one of my favorite things, being connected with everyone and seeing everyone watching with me. I can't wait to come home and visit for the holidays and hopefully go back to WBLUMC in person. But that is kind of what's been going on. I miss everyone, and I hope you are staying happy, healthy, and safe, and I will see you soon. Bye!
Thank you for joining us in worship today. But now, as you go from this time of worship, know this: wherever you go, God is already there, surrounding you with mercy and guiding you with love. So go with joy, courage, and faith, knowing that the God of light, the God of love, the God of life is always with you. Amen.
Come, come, Emmanuel, Son of God appeared. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing near. Oh come, Emmanuel, and ransom captive Israel that mourns in lonely exile here, until the Son of God appears. Oh, now come, Emmanuel, Son of God appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing near. Oh, come, O wisdom from on high, who ordered all things mightily. To us the path of knowledge show, and teach us in her ways to go. So now come, Emmanuel, Son of God appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing near. Oh, come, desire of nations bind in one the hearts of humanity. Emmanuel, Son of God, appear. Heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Hey, come, come Emmanuel, Son of God, appear. Oh, heaven and earth rejoice, salvation is drawing near. Salvation is drawing